Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 100 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. And yes, we are at the big 100, and it's pretty cool to be here. Dustin could probably tell you, spoiler alert, Dustin will be on this podcast, that 2.5 years ago, I never expected to be doing 100 episodes of any podcast, let alone the multiple podcasts I now do. And this one in particular had a little bit of a bumpy road to get here. So it's pretty cool. We've had some host changes. We had an ending, a mysterious ending, a Sopranos-like ending, thanks to Dustin, and then brought it back, and it's gone through a lot of ups and downs, but it's great to be here. You know, we're 5 hosts and dozens of find me a trades, too many Yinglings to count, and probably too many bathroom breaks to count later. We're here at 100 episodes, so it's kind of fitting. We're kind of going back to the beginning a little bit here. Co-hosting with me tonight is Bobby Koch. He was on episode 3 of this podcast and was kind of a big help behind the scenes, even before he came on that 3rd episode, kind of giving me and Dustin some advice on podcasting. So, Bobby, how you doing tonight here in episode 100?
I'm doing pretty well, and I'm also surprised given how you guys sounded on those early episodes. No, I'm just kidding. It definitely, everybody starts out somewhere. I was happy to help out. I could tell that one day this would be something very special. It very clearly is. Dustin, you are missed. I mean, we still talk regularly, but it's not the same to just not listen to you on a podcast regularly. So I'm glad you were able to join us tonight. And while I just became a co-host or host of this show, I still want to say congratulations to you all, because I've only been on really for an episode or two. So the other 98 or so took place without me being involved in official capacity. So congrats to everyone else involved. It's just been great to see the growth of this podcast, and I hope that we can continue to take it forward.
Yeah, appreciate that, Bobby. And as we both said, our guest tonight is the one and only Dustin Church, original co-host of this podcast with me. Started out just the two of us. He kind of convinced me into doing this. I had no desire to be a podcaster, ironically, and now I do 3 podcasts. But Dustin, man, I'm happy to have you here. Love you. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing well. You know, when you texted me, a couple of months ago, and then 3 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago, and then a week ago, and then 3 days ago, and reminding me to jump on. I was like, man, I know that week is really, really tight for me, but I want to do everything in my power to jump on, because I miss talking with you guys. I miss, talking football. I miss being involved in the community, and 100 episodes is a huge accomplishment. I knew that you were going to get there from the beginning, but it's still awesome to see it and to be part of it. So, I was really excited and honored to be brought back on, and, I'm just excited to talk football, and, have some fun and for old time's sake. So
yeah, I'm excited. And we are going to be getting to talking football shortly, but it's funny you said that, Bobby, because I was going to ask that to both of you. Well, especially you, Bobby. How bad was it when we first started?
It wasn't bad per se. There's room for growth, which
is a nice way of saying bad.
No, listen, I will put
constructive criticism is always good.
Yes, it is.
I'm not going to call out any shows in particular, but I've listened to shows before where I could tell that the people involved just should not be podcasting. And I've said this before, where not everyone is a podcaster, not everybody is a writer, not everyone is a video person, etc. If you want to be involved in the space, that's great, but maybe also try to find what you like to do and also what you're good at. And so there are some podcasts out there that I have listened to in the past, and I think for the most part, they're actually no longer in existence, that were not good. This was not one of those podcasts ever. I knew that at some point it would be a very good podcast. It wasn't a particularly rough beginning. There was some, if I recall, your main stuff was just like audio things, which primarily comes down to like equipment. And then with like Rocky, it was just experience, and you're much more experienced now. It is kind of funny that Dustin was the one trying to get you involved, and now Dustin's not really involved anymore. You co-host like a million podcasts. But yeah,
I'm just the leader. I'm just show them the light and let them run and do their own thing.
He's the mentor, and yeah.
I enjoyed listening from episode 1, regardless of whether it was a perfect product or not. And I think that's just a credit to what you both brought to the table.
I'm glad to hear that. And somehow through all this, like I said, the kind of ups and downs, we've managed to hold on to our solid, 20, 25 person listener base. So I'm very happy to see that. But Dustin, I just wanted to ask you before we get into the football stuff, is there any favorite moment you can remember from your time on the pod? I think you were on the first 35, 40 episodes. So
yeah, I think it was, it was a lot of fun just connecting with all the people in the community and all the different. Rocky was really, really big on getting all the big name guests that he could. Just he was like, I'm gonna get everybody, and I was like, why don't we just do a smaller show? He's like, no, we got Ryan, we got blah blah blah, everybody coming on. And
I still have it, but Andrew's just as much that guy now too.
So that was fun, but I think the funniest moment was you and me and our buddy Ben Eby were recording,
That
and
is
then
a good one. Yeah,
he was trying to get you were trying hard to get Scott Fish on constantly, and then you DM'd him, hey, we're going live, blah 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 blah, and then he messaged you back, and you almost missed the message.
I saw it about an hour into the show.
And he's like, oh, and then all of a sudden, we just go on there, and it was just really I could see in your eyes something was going on, but I couldn't figure out what it was because it was a secret from me. And then afterwards, you text me, you're like, damn man, I almost missed it. He messaged me a while ago, and then he was like, well, I guess never mind then. And Rocky was just like, oh no. So that was just really funny, and that was when I knew I was like, okay, Rocky's taking this to that next level. And so. But just all of our friends in the community, especially all of our Trade Addicts 3 friends, TA3 for life. Just seeing getting them all on and them giving us that encouragement to go forward with this. FF Trader Joe, our buddy, he was really big instrumental in getting this started as well, and obviously Russ, all his advice and everything was just awesome. So it was. I think the funniest thing is just showing that we can do it. That was just, we both went into this and I was like, I don't have that voice for podcasting or radio. I don't know what I'm and then you're like, hey, I don't know anything about tech. So you're doing all the editing. And I was like, okay. Just figuring it all out. And so that was just fun, just being able to learn and show that we can do it. And obviously you're super successful now doing it. So kudos to you for keeping it going, and the growth and the development you've had. Just seeing that has been awesome.
Also, Dustin, you do have a voice for radio. And one thing I will say to your point about Rocky and Andrew trying to get big people is when I came on as a host, basically the first thing they were was, so what's your Rolodex? Who do you know? How can we use you to get more people on this show?
Yeah. I was always like, hey, let's invite some league mates. We can get into smaller leagues. And he's like, no, we need blah, 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 blah. We need everybody. And he was like, I was like, so I just let him do that part of the show. I was like, he's just going to do the networking side of it. I don't I don't have the time to commit.
Trade Addicts, yes. Yeah. And I don't know about super successful, but I somehow keep convincing people to let me do, podcasts or come on my podcast with me. I don't know how I do it, but yeah, it's funny you mentioned the tech thing because I did not know how to edit for about the first 50 episodes of this pod. Even after Dustin, we were talking for the show. Even after Dustin left, he was editing for about probably 10, 15 episodes because I didn't know how to do it, and I finally taught myself how.
Full on just created a video
yeah, he did.
And I showed him this is what Dustin you do step by step. So because I was like, all right, Rocky, I get I'm still willing to help out, but you got to figure this out on your own.
And and just it's funny you mentioned the Scott Fish thing. That was one of probably my favorite moments too, because I remember that night and I was literally pumping my fist while we were doing the show, and I don't think you even realized for a second what the hell I was doing it for. And then Scott pops up in the bottom of the screen to come into the stream. And the one moment I was thinking it was kind of our first really big guest was a few episodes before that. We got Ryan McDowell, and I remember I told you Ryan was going to come on, and I was like, holy shit, how are we going to do a show with Ryan McDowell? Like, we don't know what it was. Just episode 7, I believe we got Ryan on. And
yeah, and he was like super engaged, like with the Find Me a Trade. You're like, is he actually going to do Find Me a Trade? Like, he's Ryan. He's that busy. Like,
especially early on, I was very worried about we had JJ Zachariason an episode or 2 later. And I always worried, like, these guys aren't going to want to do Find Me. You know, they don't want to do homework to come on a podcast, but the large majority of people have found time to do it, which has also been very cool.
And I think Ryan like actually beat us in putting in the trade. Like he was one of the first ones in there.
I think so.
I was like, all right, he went big. I gotta step this up.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we will finally, stop blabbering about our time on the show for now, and it may come up again later. Who knows? But let's get into some football stuff. And speaking about time on the show, we used to have a segment called Fantasy Faceoff, which I brought back for this week, just for fun, for old time's sake. And it kind of fits with our topic anyway, because I picked 2 guys who are back-to-back in ADP. Running back 15 and 16. They're 53 and 54 overall in May Superflex ADP. And it's Cam Akers versus ETN. And basically just who do you prefer? The way we phrased the question all the time when we did this segment was, who do you want to roster on a 12-team PPR Dynasty League? And I was kind of shocked by the Twitter poll results. We got 290 votes, and it ended up ETN 73% to Akers 27% for 2 guys who are back-to-back in ADP. So it's about me and Dustin have been blabbering on a little bit here. What are your thoughts on these 2? I think Trader Joe in the thread said, can I trade either of them for a 23 first? That's not an option here. You got to pick one, Bobby.
All right. Well, that was going to be one of my reactions, but I will say, I think we've said before on this show that when Twitter doesn't agree with you, that generally feels good. And my instant reaction was like, oh, I'd rather have Cam Akers. He's in the better offense. He did show that he's at least somewhat recovered by playing in the playoffs last year, where ETN, you can say like, oh yeah, Liz Frank injury, all of that stuff with like Urban Meyer. So we don't know what the Jags offense is really going to look like. Don't get me wrong. I know Doug Peterson has used running backs well before, but there's something about being in an explosive offense, being a player that I believed in, being a player that is already shown at least that he's mostly healthy, I think, and the injury doesn't scare me quite as much as the Liz Frank, just because and I'm not a doctor, but from what I understand of the 2 different injuries, one has been much more damaging to the long-term careers of running backs than the other, and that's the Liz Frank versus the Achilles. So I would go with the guy who's in the better offense with the injury that scares me a little bit less personally. So to your point, Rocky, I'm kind of interested to see that Twitter is very much against me on this one.
Yeah, and I thought it was funny to do these 2 as well, because these are 2 guys I've been vocally against pretty much, or lower on, I should say, than the community. But I'll let Dustin chime in first before I do, and then I'll finish it off. So I almost called you Justin, I think.
Man, I go away and you don't even remember my name. I saw this question. It was pretty easily Akers for me. Kind of for the points Bobby said, like he's in a way better offense. But outside of that, we saw that how much commitment they showed him in the playoffs when he was still coming back from injury. Like the amount of carries he was getting, the amount of work that he was getting, it just shows that they're going to give him work. He's not going to have any questions about getting carries and working that offense. And, right now he probably also has the better quarterback. Who knows on Lawrence right now, but like we know that offense, that team, we also know that coach knows how to use him. Like, so I'm right there with Bobby on all his points, like, but the usage is going to be there. And that's the main point. I mean, we might see this later on with ETN, but as of right now, it's pretty easily Akers for me. I just, he shows he's recovered from that injury. Now he's had a whole non-point scoring season to really recover and strengthen that leg. Now, he showed he's recovered. Now it's just strengthening that. I think like he's in for a pretty decent year. Like I'm not the biggest Akers guy like you, Rocky, but I still, we've never seen ETN do anything. We don't know how he fits with that team. I mean, it does help that James Robinson is now also dealing with an Achilles, so who knows when he comes back. So it could be ETN's backfield, but as of now, it's Akers for me.
Yeah, it's so funny that Twitter was so in favor of one side here, because I'm with you guys. To me, this was pretty easily Akers. Like, and it was funny. Some of the responses in the tweet thread were like diametrically opposed. Like, oh, this is definitely ETN. No, it's so easily Akers. Like, and that's kind of how I feel. And for all the reasons you basically said, the offense. We haven't really seen Akers do a lot either, by the way, though. I will say that. I mean, everyone, I think people kind of even don't remember that he didn't play that much his first year. Like, there was a lot of, he was just being mixed in here and there, and he kind of came on towards the end of the year, and then everybody loved him, and that's kind of why I hated him. I didn't hate Akers. I hated that people were valuing him as a top 5 running back pretty much based off a few games at the end of the year. But at least we have seen something, and like you guys said, the offense, the quarterback, and I don't know if either of you mentioned this, but Doug Peterson scares me a little bit with ETN. I know James Robinson is banged up, but I still believe if that medicine may have progressed to the point where if Cam Akers can come back in 4 months, I think James Robinson can probably come back in 8. He probably won't be great. He probably won't be as good as he was before, but I still think he's going to be mixed in there. And Peterson loves to do running back by committee, more so than the Rams do. So I was, like I said, just utterly shocked that it was. So I think the takeaway here is if you have ETN, go trade him for Akers plus.
I think it's also just Darrell Henderson has been like fine, whereas like nobody who's available to the Jags right now because James Robinson is hurt has shown anything. So people might just be scared of Henderson taking that job because, to your point, we were all just super impressed by the fact that Cam Akers even came back to play in the playoffs at all. But it's not like he put up amazing stats or anything like that. Like his best game was like 60 yards from scrimmage. It's more just like, oh my God, this guy is playing. But it wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's playing and he's putting up amazing stats.
Right. But it's interesting to me that people are like, he did come back in the same season and people are writing off James Robinson, like, because he had an Achilles injury. He's just like done for his career now. Whereas we just saw,
because he's a undrafted free agent.
Yeah, exactly.
People just naturally hate undrafted free agents. They go, you didn't get any draft capital, therefore I hate you, even if you produced.
Exactly.
Yeah, and anything that they can use to fit that narrative. So, like, now that he's injured, like, oh, his career's over. Like, but we've seen it happen too. So,
yeah, he produced, but his career is over because he's now injured, and another running back who had higher draft capital got injured, and their career is not over because I say so, and that's how it works.
Yeah. So again, we're 3 for 3 on Akers. So go trade ETN for Akers plus. Go do it. So our main topic for tonight was going to be talking about. Excuse me, God, my throat tonight. 80. I must be all verklempt over episode 100. I guess I don't know.
I have that effect on people.
You're just going back to your episode 1 roots, Rocky. It's fine.
There you go. So you're saying I'm doing horrible tonight. Thanks, Bobby. Okay, we were looking at May Superflex ADP and just kind of picking out, each of us was picking out some guys we thought maybe were overvalued or undervalued. Just wanted to talk it out a little bit between us. And we actually have category 2, who the hell knows, which we'll get to. But I will, Dustin, as the guest, I know you threw, I don't remember, we didn't put down who put which person. So why don't you take one of your guys and we'll start with him. We'll see how many we can get through here.
So my overvalued, I put Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And I know that's been kind of the question going around right now is who it's going to be. Right now, they're going back to back in ADP at 16 and 17 overall, and wide receiver 9 and 10. And I think I'm really, I put this on here to get your guys' opinion on this, because I don't know that Tua is going to be able to maintain 2 top 10 receivers, and so I wanted to I think that's going to end up overvaluing both of them. Like, I don't think I can commit to taking either one in the top 10 right now because I don't know who it's going to be. I personally think it's going to be Waddle just because I don't know that Tua's got the arm strength and the accuracy, even though Tyreek Hill came out and said, he's getting more accurate passes than he got from Mahomes, that could just be him trying to hype up his quarterback, whatever. But, I still think it's kind of Waddle. They really developed that rapport last year. He's more of a slot guy, so he's going to get peppered with those targets. That is going to help him return that ranking, that finish. But where are you guys at on the two? Like, I think they're kind of probably both overvalued right now.
I'm with you on Waddle. I'm Waddle over Hill, and I actually think his value's fine. I think for Waddle, Tyreek, I don't have too much of a problem with either. Like you said, they're wide receiver 9-10 back to back. I think you didn't separate them here. I assumed Waddle's higher at 9, but as the younger guy, I'd rather have Waddle. I think Waddle's going to outscore Tyreek. I think this year, and if he outscores him this year, I think it's likely for their time in Miami. He's probably going to be the slightly higher guy. It does cap probably his ceiling, just because the biggest thing with Waddle last year was that they didn't unlock kind of the deep threat of him. I don't know that that's going to happen. Like, he has speed for days, and they didn't really use that. And I don't know that they're going to with Tyreek there now. So it does cap his upside. So from that angle, I can see him maybe being overvalued, but I think he's valued about right, if not slightly undervalued. What he did as a rookie, I think he broke the rookie record for receptions. I
think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, sorry to cut you off. Like, he was wide receiver 13 last year, and he didn't start slow. He started right away in week 1. Like, producing right away in week 1, and now they brought in the Tyreek Hill that you're gonna have to feed. Like, so I don't know how he's gonna jump with like setting records and targets unless he starts scoring. Like, that's just kind of where I'm at. Like, they brought in Tyreek, like that's just more of a pie to, What are you gonna say, Bobby?
Kind of lost here though is, and while I agree, being the main target on your team can be beneficial. We talk about this all the time as if it's like a negative thing, but bringing in another weapon can open up passing lanes for you so that now defenses can't just key in on, okay, the only thing on the Dolphins is Waddle. I have to pay attention to Tyreek. I have to defend him. Maybe that'll open things up a bit more for Waddle. I do generally agree that of the two, I want Waddle more. I do think that maybe both are currently being slightly overvalued just because I do think they somewhat cap each other's ceilings. That said, Tyreek's at that scary age for Dynasty. Maybe not if you're Rocky or someone who plays like Rocky, and I'm not saying that's necessarily even a bad thing. But if he has like a quote-unquote down year, he will be 28 or 29, and suddenly people in Dynasty will be like, oh, he's not a top 12 wide receiver. What are we thinking? And his value has a bigger chance to crater. So I think Tyreek is the bigger trap than Waddle because of age and other factors like that.
Yeah, we've seen it all the time. I think this time last year, I heard on another. I wish I could credit them. I heard on another podcast, DeAndre Hopkins, I think, was like wide receiver 10 at this point last year, and we've seen what's happened to his value. Not quite up to par season with the injuries in it, and he's like, I don't even know where he is now. We don't have him on the sheet, so I think he's somewhere in like the 20s or 30s. So. Yeah, I'm with you. Tyreek's value is on the precipice there of just diving completely.
Hopkins' current ADP is 79 overall, and the wide receiver 41. But that's also because he just got suspended. Like,
that's true. Like, he's gonna miss.
The community is really like reactive right now. So the May ADP, like obviously he just got suspended, so he's gonna be down on that.
Now, the community is just always reactive. Yes. That's just point blank. We are reactive.
I've said that a million times on pod. It's amazing for a game that's supposed to be long term how we are. I feel like more reactive than even redraft. Like people are in terms of these kind of things. So, but before we move on to the next guy, even though I'm very happy with how the podcast is going so far, well into it, I think we'll add another host in.
I'm out. This is good to see you guys.
Yeah, I think that means it's time for Dustin to leave since we have Scott Sidlow here.
Passing the torch, baby. Let's go.
Scott, man, how's it going tonight?
I want to say that. So listen to this full statement here. So we may not be here without me, but we also are here in spite of me. So that's pretty incredible within itself, if you think about it. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of got both ends. Like, hey, you kind of helped and you kind of sucked, and then it all came together and we're here. So, I mean, look at that, right?
Yeah, I like it. It's pretty deep. I didn't know we were gonna get that deep.
I know.
Like, philosophy, baby. That's what's coming out of Chicagoland right now. It's politics season.
But yes, I'm very happy to have Scott on tonight. And when he came on the show, I after Dustin had to leave, Dustin, had to actually care about, real life, and got too busy to do a podcast. No. But yeah, Scott's been great. I don't know if you want to say anything. Is there any specific memory of the show that you really enjoyed or anything like that? I didn't tell you I was going to ask any questions, but any memories before we move on to the rest of the football stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because I don't think we had known each other that well or that long, right?
Yeah.
At the time. And
I
it was
knew
just
you
kind of
because-
like,
yeah.
And
when
so
you came on, I had already done Trade Addicts, so I knew you from the Trade Addicts B team and all that. Yeah.
right. And then I mean, I think it was just good timing. Everything worked out the way it did. And so that was pretty cool. And so yeah, I mean, it's been fun, like getting to, even though I kind of always do my own thing on Trade Addicts anyway, because like Russ isn't gonna add it, so I just do whatever I want. But being on here and kind of putting my own spin on it and just getting to be a regular part of the community has been, it's just been awesome. So for me, I'm super appreciative of you reaching out, from the very beginning, and then just what it's grown into and kind of our little community that we have. It almost feels a little bit different. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I have for a long time. And there's a few of them. I'm not saying it's just us, but I think there's definitely a few out there that are, we're kind of our own little community. Like we are definitely junkies,
Yes.
Like we love this stuff. We live it, we breathe it. And I think it's been really cool interacting with our listeners. Think about all the guests we've had on. We have had, I mean, what a run we're on currently too, but like just over the history, all the different people we've got to have conversations with, and it's not just the great content we get to put out for the listeners, but it's the conversations we have before we start recording and after as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes some of the things you learn, or just those conversations you have, or the relationships you build. And I mean, you wouldn't get that if you're not doing this. Right. So I think all of that combined is just really cool.
And that was, excuse me, that was always my thing when Dustin asked me to do this. I never expected this to become much of a thing, and I didn't know how many people would listen. But I always just figured, it'll be so cool just to talk with football with all these. Like I've talked with JJ Zacharias, and I've talked with Ryan McDowell. I've talked with Bobby Koch. I thought.
Well, so Scott made this really nice statement, and now I'm going to show you some stuff behind the scenes and just put this out there, that one of Scott's favorite moments happened in like the past week or two when we had our episode of David Zock, because he said that was one of our best episodes ever.
Yes, it was.
And that I'm a better host than Rocky. So just putting that out there.
Whoa.
I just said you're the best host of all of us, to be fair.
I don't know.
That's true.
A high bar
You didn't
to clear,
specifically
Bobby.
call out Rocky.
Yeah.
Bobby just likes to stir that pot.
That's a pretty low bar, Bobby. So
That's what they brought
wouldn't
me in
take
to
too
do,
much out of
Dustin.
that.
I'm excited to be jumping on with Scott. Like he tried to get me to, when he was hosting Trade Addicts, a month and a half ago.
Yeah,
we were going to come on, and we just couldn't connect.
Yeah, I know, right? That would have been fun.
Yeah.
And Scott's here. I guess just a little later here, we'll add Andrew in.
Hey,
might as well have all the hosts on. Why not, Andrew?
What's up, gentlemen?
Happy
I was
to
wondering
have-
where you were at. Like I saw your comments, and I was like, "What? Does he just not want to talk to me? Like, what's the deal here?" Like I see him commenting. He's obviously paying attention.
We're going in linear order. This is brilliant. I love
Yeah.
this idea, Rocky, where it's like, this is how the hosts have come on. This is great. And
Yeah, and
Bobby being
even
involved early
Bobby
and
Bobby
late,
wasn't a
listen,
host till late, but
Yep.
he was on episode 3, so he fits.
Well,
Online
also,
work.
I will call myself out and say that I would have fallen asleep if I was
Yes,
not on
that
the
was
entire
too.
show. But I could disappear for like a while and come back later. At some
There you
point.
go.
We'll see.
But
great.
Andrew, any before we completely bore the people with just talking about the history of the show, anything you want to say before we get back to the football stuff?
Well, I know that you guys were one of the first Dynasty podcasts I started listening to. One of those like auto subscribe, auto download kind of things, because I just love the banter you two had. I mean, obviously you and Dustin go way back, and I know there was a stretch where there were, so like Dustin was there and then he wasn't there, and then Scott was there, and I was just like, man, I still hope they got the vibe and it was still there. You know what I mean? Like it was still like that kind of like informative but lighthearted, like funny
Dustin
but
and
really
Scott both
informative
like to
all
bust my
around.
balls.
Exactly. And I love anytime anybody can bust your balls, Rocky. I'm always a fan of that. So it was an honor to get asked to join the team. I was like, oh heck yeah. And they've already got a Gabe Gearing like intro. Like this is brilliant. Like I just
no
that
doubt.
song I still
Maybe
play
the
it, like,
best
all
thing
the
about
time.
the show.
Easily.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
none of us are great. It's just that man bun intro is just fire, man. I'm telling you. So
yeah, I'm glad
Go
you're here, Andrew. Like I was talking to Rocky and he was like, "Man, I don't know who to bring on." I was like, "You should bring Andrew because when we had him on, like he was fantastic."
Yes.
And so you're here because of me. So you're
Well, I
welcome.
appreciate that, Dustin. I kind of figured that was the case, to be honest.
There was. I hope Scott doesn't mind me saying that. There was a point here where Scott was a little iffy, like he had some real life things going on, kind of like Dustin did, and had to step away for a little bit. I was hosting by myself for a while, and I did. Me and Dustin talked about it, and and when he said it, I was like, "Oh my god, that is so perfect!" Because I remember when you came on, we neither Dustin or I were super familiar with. It was like 2 years ago when you came on. It was early on, and we weren't super familiar. Like, wow, after you came on, we talked about. I don't know if we said anything to you, but we were like, wow, Andrew was really good. Like that was a really good show. And when he said that name, I was like, yep, that is the perfect person.
And I wanted to say this because I thought it was entertaining. I looked back into my records because I keep track because I'm ridiculous. And I was on episode 15. So I was not quite number 3 like Bobby. So it was entirely fair that he gets the intro part. But it was just you and me and Dustin. But it was my 6th ever podcast. Like I was so like just kind of getting into it, and it was on August 5th of 2020 is when we recorded it. So it is almost 2 years. So I'm just awesome. I was glad to be on that. That was such a good show, just to be like one of those where I was like, oh my god, I've listened to this for so long, and now I get to be a part of it, kind of things. And then to now even be more a part of it and get to bother a lot of other people with my stuff, my stupid dumb trades that Bobby loves to talk about. Like this is a dream come true. So I'm just happy to be here. You can kick me off whenever.
So Andrew, this is another behind the scenes thing too, but when I was giving these guys advice, I clearly listened to the podcast regularly, and I did listen to your episode, and I do remember thinking to myself, oh, this guy brings a lot of energy. He's really good. I really enjoy listening to him. So that's a credit to you, and I'm glad that you are a regular part of the show and that I get to talk to you even more regularly now.
And I know with all the potty breaks that Rocky takes, you got to have somebody to fill the gap, and I'm really good at talking, so this is perfect.
There will be one coming before the end of the show too. I even took one before the show. I still think there's going to be another one.
It wouldn't be episode 100 without it, Rocky.
No, how could we do? Yeah, how could we do?
How did you deal with this for so long, Dustin?
Yeah, it was only the two of us, and he would just disappear, and I was like, I'm just talking to myself. Like, I was just.
We did, we did have a couple episodes where it was just us, and
I know great. I give myself the best advice. Like, so I know, like, but like, it was like, I was like, man, Rocky's been gone for a while. Like, I just got to keep talking. Like, I don't know what to say.
Dustin, that's when you just start making up voices and pretending other people are there.
Yeah,
you're really smart.
I'll get too lost in the wind. Like, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dustin.
Great point. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're gonna get back to the football now, and Andrew and Scott, feel free to chime in on whatever you want to chime in on. But Bobby, I'll let you take on one of your guys you put on here next, and we'll talk about him.
Yeah, I guess we'll go with the quarterback of your favorite team. So Jalen Hurts comes in at pick 13 and QB9 overall. And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, Jalen Hurts can't pass, so that means that he's completely not valuable, because I recognize that rushing quarterbacks have value in fantasy, regardless of whether they actually have real life value. But coming in at quarterback 9, I was just taking a look earlier, and this meant that he was coming in ahead of guys like Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Trey Lance, just to name a few. Trey Lance, I kind of snuck in there because I'm not sure so many would agree with me that he should be more valuable. But coming in like way ahead of Matthew Stafford, I was just like, if I can give you Hurts for Stafford plus, I am making that deal every single time. And so that's just personally how I felt about Hurts. I'm not so confident in him that I'm taking him in top 9 overall of quarterbacks and as my, first round pick in a super flex startup right now.
Yeah, and it's tough. I saw that, Bobby, and I thought that was like a perfect one because, like, in all reality, he'll probably finish there this year from like a ranking standpoint and quarterbacks. Like, he will probably be a top 10 quarterback this year. But like we talked about earlier that everyone in the community is just so reactive. Like it's crazy. He's probably he will, unless he gets injured, he will most likely finish as a top 10 quarterback, and he could also not be on a team next year. Like those outcomes are both those things can happen simultaneously. So that's what makes it really, really difficult for him. And that's why I'm there with you. I can't, I'm not taking him like recovering really truth just said, over T-Law Fields, all those guys, like Stafford, like you said, Bobby, it's hard to take him over that because he's not, there's a really good chance that he's not going to be even there next year. But he's surrounded with weapons, and he's running quarterback, and he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. So it's but I'm right there. I'm not taking
the one thing I will add is everybody knows, or people, I shouldn't say everybody knows, because that's an assumption that people actually pay attention to me, which is just not true. But many people know that I was a big fan of Blake Bortles for fantasy purposes. And Blake Bortles would continually be like this QB 12. And I couldn't understand why nobody wanted to draft him, essentially. And then eventually he didn't have a real life job. And so now I think that I am scared of what I call the Blake Bortles syndrome. And I think Jalen Hurts might fall into that, where he produces for fantasy, but his production for fantasy is very detached from real life football value. And that scares me a bit. I hope that he produces real life football value, but he hasn't shown enough for me to say, yes, he is definitively the franchise guy for the Eagles.
I will say, I think even if he just does what he did last year, which was good but not great from a passing perspective, that when we talked about this a little on Trade Addicts earlier this week, because Hurts was involved in one of the trades, that I do think even if the Eagles move on, he will be a quarterback somewhere. There's just too much crap around the league that he's shown enough. I think that the only way he's not, I think, is if somehow the Eagles obtain another quarterback either in the draft or via trade and decide to keep Jalen Hurts as their backup, which I highly doubt is going to happen. So I think he's a starter for at least the next 2 years. I guess it's possible if he does not improve, then that could be it. But I think somebody else takes a chance on him, even if the Eagles decide to move on after 2022. So I think you get at least 2 years out of him.
It's tough because he's not even the best quarterback on his team. Sorry.
Funniest part is, are you talking about Carson Strong or Gardner Minshew? Like either one of them could be the slam.
I'm talking about Minshew. I love Minshew.
Carson Strong is trash.
But that's how bad he thinks Hurts is. That's where I was going with it. I wanted to jump in with this real quick though. That Hurts at QB9 is behind Watson at QB8. Like
this is May. A lot of the stuff
I know. I'm looking at June, I guess. Yeah. Oh, no, this is May. So so we don't have June yet. But I'm just man. But
there's been a lot. I would say that the last 4 weeks have not been kind to Deshaun Watson's dynasty stocks.
That's fair. That's right. This is May. You're right. But I'm still saying, like even in May, I was probably more willing to have Hurts than Watson. But especially at pick 13, you're looking at that first turn. That is a lot of investment in someone that may or may not be a top 20 QB in a year. Like that's ballsy. So it's a high ceiling, low floor. And if you're drafting him at QB9, aren't you kind of drafting him at the ceiling? Like, can he really be a top 5 QB? I don't know. Like, everything has to go exactly right, and it never does for the Eagles, which I'm sure Rocky can attest to.
So looking at it, I'm looking at the ADP, and if you click on the startup ADP tab, it's actually there for June. Superflex isn't, and I never really understood. But anyways,
they're different drafts. Yeah.
That startup the startup ADP is fresh as of today because I checked earlier and it was May still, so it must have just changed over. So this is breaking news.
On there, Hurts is number 7 above Dak.
Wow.
He's above
Dak.
That's
too rich. Even I don't actually mind Hurts at 9 as much as you do. But 7, that's insane to me.
7 over Dak, I'm not. There's no way I'm there. Like
the AJ Brown bump,
and even in that, in this ADP, Watson's still at 9. Like he only fell, a spot. I don't know what he wasn't starting.
I'm not touching Watson, but that's a whole other topic. We won't talk.
Oh God, yeah, Dustin. Anybody who has any kind of issues at all, Dustin doesn't want to go near.
I'm the same way with.
With the first 2-round pick, I don't. Yeah, I don't mind being risky with a 13th round startup pick, but with the second round or first round pick and startup, no, thank you.
My only team that I have him. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Dustin.
I was gonna say my only team I have him is Bobby's league. Your Justice League of Superflexers. He's my only quarterback, and it's Watson, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
You should try to move him. But what I was going to say about Dak is just move him. It's so
There you go.
easy.
It's that simple, Dustin.
Brilliant.
just move him.
What I was going to say is I feel like Dak is one of the most disrespected quarterbacks out there because he just continually puts up numbers. It doesn't seem to really matter who's on the Cowboys offense. And you should trust this coming from me because I am a Giants fan. I was born and raised to absolutely hate all things Cowboys. And I'm saying that Dak Prescott is disrespected. So I really just think Dak is one of those continually undervalued guys. I think it'll be later in his career where we're kind of talking about him like Matthew Stafford, where we're like, oh yeah, he's a really good quarterback and we probably should have appreciated him earlier in his career.
Okay. I think that's enough Hurts talk and Watson talk and everybody else talk. Okay, so we'll get on to enough quarterback talk. We'll move on to, I don't care about quarterbacks. So we'll move on to one of my guys. And this is a guy I put in the who the hell knows. We had a who the hell knows category on our sheet here. And I don't know what to make of him. And he's on my own team. So we're going from one Eagle to another. Devontae Smith. He's at 80 overall, wide receiver 27. And I'm not sure if that's a value or if that may even be too high. I don't, you have the Hurts issue. Is he going to improve as a passer? If he doesn't, it makes it a little tough. There's the volume question. We had a big discussion in the Trade Addicts Patreon chat about the volume on, I think that revolved around Smith as well and Hurts about the volume that's going to come from the Eagles this year. I personally believe it's going to increase fairly significantly. Sirianni, beginning of last year, at the first 7 games, Hurts threw 35 plus times in 5 of them. So I think that's what he wants to do. I think that's why they brought in A.J. Brown. But then you have the A.J. Brown issue. What does that do to Devontae Smith? He got Goddard there. So I want you guys to tell me, what the hell do I do with Devontae Smith? Is 27 a value, or is 27 right, or is it too high?
I want to hear Scott on this one because I don't really have a comment. I don't really know.
I have a comment,
right there.
but
I don't know.
I want to hear Scott's first. Yeah.
So I guess I'd have to look right now in the trade finder to see what he's going for. But to me, he feels like a buy. I think
he's extremely talented. He had a great rookie year, I think. I mean, not Jamar Chase, but for a rookie, that was a good year.
Just think about all the attention he had on him. I mean, who else was out there? Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor. And I mean, so now A.J. Brown's out there, right? And you have Goddard in the middle. I mean, listen, either Hurts is going to take the next step and he'll be fine. Will he ever be like an alpha? No, but I don't think we're ever expecting that either, right? So, I mean, if you're expecting that, it's not, guess what? It's not going to happen. It was never going to happen. So Hurts is going to take the next step and he'll be very relevant, probably a solid 2. And if not, they'll probably bring in a Stroud or a Young or whoever they could trade up for and upgrade that position. And so then he's in great shape probably, right? Because he's one of those guys that's every quarterback's best friend. He just knows how to get open. He gets that separation. And AJ Brown, I mean, he's a freak. So he's going to do what he does regardless, I think, of the offense. So Smith could really be like the PPR guy. I almost see AJ Brown as, not that he couldn't have games with a lot of catches, but I think he'll be more of like the big play or the set play. We're going to run the screen or we're going to, do this with him and run plays for him. Whereas Smith, it's going to be like, go get open. Right. And so he could have that more PPR style where he's, 80 catches for 900 yards. Like he's not going to have 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. But yeah, as like a solid 2 for sure. So whatever his price is right now, I think it's probably depressed a little bit because of AJ Brown and because of the Hurt situation. So I would think if you're a believer and you want to buy, that now would be the time. And I would say you could wait, but I said that about Diggs too. And then Diggs just went, absolutely wild. So I wouldn't do that just in case, right? Because Allen took that next step and it blew up Diggs. So you never know. And I would be buying probably now if you want to.
As you were talking there, Scott, it was kind of convincing me. And it almost made me think they are 2 very, very different types of players. But
totally different.
Oh, well, no, I'm going to make a comparison. Sorry. Could he almost be like from a fantasy perspective, like Bobby Trees, like live in that high end 2 area for his career and never kind of be that,
Definitely.
that Jamar Chase that, we all want, but be that guy that's always scoring you points and it probably is perennially undervalued. And if he is that guy, wide receiver 27 at a very, very young age, he probably is undervalued.
Yeah.
The one problem there is his name's not Bobby, and we know that Bobby makes you be good at sports. So he has to change his name to Bobby Smith.
Okay, there you go.
Well, I wanted to jump in with this. So I'm looking at the ADP on DLF like we all are, right? And just kind of investigating a little bit. The range, there's 4 drafts that this ADP is pulled from, and there is a range of 30 picks. He was picked as high as 68 and as low as 98, which that's a wide range. That's a lot of variation. So that could be affecting his number a little bit if he fell in one league where people didn't see he was there. I don't know, which I thought was interesting. And in 2 of the leagues, Davis Mills went ahead of him, and 2 of them, Davis Mills went after him. And I just used Davis Mills because in one league, he went 30 picks ahead of Davis Mills, and in one he went 30 picks after Davis Mills. So like again, it's just like I don't know if this is true value, right? Like this is a mock ADP, and sometimes that's where you get these like, well, someone's blowing this up. Second point, to kind of go with what Scott was saying, I looked it up on the Trade Finder while you were talking, Scott. Which would you rather have? This is straight up. It's in a DLF Champions League. Devonta Smith or Christian Kirk?
Smith, without a doubt.
Hands down.
It's
like that's not even a question. That was done 4 days ago. That's crazy to me. There was another one I saw in here which makes worth more thinking, I think. Devonta Smith in the 206 or Henry in the 308. Like
I'll still take Smith.
I still take Smith. I think Henry's good and all this, but and you get the better pick. Like, I don't know, that's enough for me. And last one I'll bring up, which again I thought this was interesting. Devonta Smith and Cole Beasley for Tony Pollard. Give me Devontae Smith all day. Like I'm just confused by some of these trades. And that's one, I mean, there's a couple others, obviously there's a bunch, but those are the ones that stood out to me to be like, that's the price in the market. Like he is all over the place. Like he is literally going for some crazy values right now. So 100% he's a buy. Like I traded for him in a league about a month ago. It was a home league. I traded away Devonta Adams for the 103 and Devonta Smith pretty much. And I felt great about it. I'm like, I think that's a pretty good pivot from Devonta Adams, who could still be, a top guy and all this, but I don't know. I just feel like everybody's sleeping on Devonta Smith. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on.
It's the Blake Bortles syndrome. Everyone thinks Jalen Hurts is Blake Bortles, kind of like I do. And so they're worried about him being able to support 2 wide receivers, much less 1. And I'm not saying that Smith is not value, because based on what you were just saying, if that's true to a larger sample size across markets, he's clearly a value right now. I think we have spent probably enough time, though, talking about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. And
I agree. So, I just wanted to bring up the variation there because that was nuts to me. And it is what the hell. Like that's a perfect category for it.
Yeah. So we are going to move on from the Eagles. We're going to talk, and I maybe should hold off on this one just because Rocky has taken a mysterious disappearance.
Oh, yeah.
But we are going to talk about someone from my favorite team, actually, which is Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
And I'm actually the one who put this here as another overvalued player. And it was Saquon Barkley at 26 overall, RB6. And guys, I get it. Saquon came out and was really, really special, but he's been injured for essentially the past 2 seasons, and the Giants have been terrible for the past 2 seasons. So that value you're getting from like him being on his rookie contract and just being that great, it hasn't happened for a while. It might be, I don't know. I feel like people are holding on to the name value here. RB6 is a really tough pill for me to swallow, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Saquon Barkley.
So I tend to think that I tend to agree that I think he's overvalued, but I'm looking and I'm curious who below him are you taking over him? Like right, RB7 is Breece Hall, and then it's Eckler, Mixon, Chubb, and then you get in like Henry, Cook, Dobbins. Who of those are you taking over Barkley? I think Eckler and Mixon are probably the only 2 I'm for sure taking over Barkley.
I would pretty much take everyone you just named over Barkley at this point.
Interesting. Even Henry at his age and his usage?
Absolutely. Yep. Because if I believe that we may be getting maybe one more fantasy relevant season out of Barkley, if that. And the other thing is, and this is just my Giants bias showing a bit, Devontae Booker played better and put up better stats than Saquon Barkley last year. That's not someone that I'm looking at as going, wow, this is an amazing fantasy asset. You got outplayed by someone who's been a career backup.
To be fair, he coming off an ACL. Unless you're, Android Adrian Peterson, a lot of guys do struggle that first season back. And then he did have that freak injury where he stepped on the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm willing to cut. I'm higher on Barkley than most. So I'm willing to cut him a little slack.
He stepped on the entire.
But are you
Cowboys.
All at once? Yeah.
But Rocky, are you RB6 high on Saquon Barkley? And second round pick high on Saquon Barkley?
Probably not.
Well, so here, I'll jump in here for a second too, because I love that question, Dustin. That's exactly what I do. Where someone's like, "Oh, he shouldn't be RB6." I'm like, "Well, then who are you taking over him?" Right? Like, well, okay, so where do you put him? And I mean, I easily take Eckler over him. I probably easily take Mixon over him at this point. I just feel like Mixon's got more track record and on a better offense. I'd probably still take Chubb and Henry over him. You know what I mean? Like it's funny because I was coming on this thinking we would talk about Barkley as being undervalued, but his ADP has risen since I last really looked into it. And then I see it on the list as an over at RB6. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like that's not a buy anymore. Like that's a sell. Like I think I'm kind of agreeing with Bobby. I think he's got 1 or 2 good years left. I'm just not 100% sold on that offense being something that, I don't know, makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And then again, just because I was curious, I looked up some trades with him too. And this blew my mind. Again, this is supposedly a Dynasty Superflex from 10 days ago.
Trade. Please be my trade.
I traded him yesterday.
Was Barkley for Higgins in the 302.
Nope, not me.
Higgins in the 302 for Barkley. I would easily take Higgins in the 302. Am I wrong on that? Like that's nuts value to me.
So I traded him to Russ in TA3 yesterday.
For what? What'd you get?
I don't. Now that I'm looking back, I don't know. I love it, but I got Elijah Mitchell at 24 first and second.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
I don't mind that.
It's fine.
Yeah, I would take that for Barkley personally. I'd
give it up for Barkley too, so that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another trade in here for Barkley for the 108 and 208 in this year's class. I think that's better than that. I mean, like 24 is obviously a little ways out, but you got Mitchell too.
I would not do that, as Bobby will attest to.
No, I would not. I would keep Barkley. I would easily sell those for Barkley. Is that the fair way to put that? Like that's a different side of the trade. Am I wrong?
Right.
Like, I wouldn't take the 108. But that's where I'm saying like his value is all over the place too. Like at that value, I'm holding Barkley. I'm buying Barkley at that price, but I'm selling him for that Higgins price. You know, like that's where it gets kind of bonkers.
I think, Andrew, we do this a lot where we as dynasty players and generally fantasy players tend to hold on to name values possibly for too long. And so it makes there be a wide range where you have some of those players who are like, it's Saquon Barkley, gold jacket, came out, dominated as a rookie, amazing player. And then there are others who are going multiple years of playing in a bad offense with multiple injuries, coming into an offense that's frankly rebuilding. And he may not show out. And if he doesn't show out, is another team really going to give him a great opportunity? Maybe not.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I have Barkley in one league, and after seeing some of these trades that are like live trades, I'm like, man, that sounds good. I know there's a trade showing up here that between Rocky and Outhouse for Barkley. I don't know if you wanted to bring that up in TA8. I don't want to talk about that one, Rocky.
I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I didn't think you would because it was only 2 days ago, and that's how you guys were addicts that we don't remember. But it says here Barkley for Bell, Fournette, and Mike Williams.
Oh yes, yeah, we talked about that on the show.
And I think I remember hearing you talk about this, and I remember seeing some like in my head. I remember seeing some like light bulbs go off. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a pretty good haul for Barkley. I don't mind that.
That's what I thought. I gave up Barkley. Yeah, I
know I'm a big Bell believer, as are you, and I think Fournette's not terrible, and probably in the same time frame of 1 to 2 years.
Outscore him this year.
Easily, right? And so then you're adding Mike Williams, who's a stud in a sense for a couple weeks. You just don't know when they are. Like, I don't mind that as a splitting up Barkley kind of trade. So yeah, just again, what an odd year we're in, right? With this year's rookie class being so all over the place. Just
So what I'm hearing is if you're in a league with Russ and you have Barkley, send him offers because he's bought him in 2 TA leagues in the last 2 days.
He's as high on Barkley as I am, if not higher. So yeah.
But he is more of an addict than anyone too. He just trades and trades. So he probably doesn't even have Barkley on that team anymore. It's not showing up, but maybe he traded him in already, you know? We'll never know. Anyway, that was a good one, Bobby. Good one.
Yeah, and earlier, so we talked about the Giants, we've talked about the Eagles, and we were just talking about a Giants running back. I think it's time for us to talk about some undervalued players because we've thrown enough shade on some of these players. Let's move over to another Cowboy, because earlier I talked about Dak Prescott, but we're going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott and the fact that it seems like the entire community is just off Ezekiel Elliott, even though he's still putting up numbers. So according to the ADP that we pulled earlier, he was coming in at 92 overall and RB 26. So
that's insane to me.
RB3. That's an RB
26.
And also that's the 9th round or 8th round. 8th round.
And what are we sending offers for him right now? Because that's ridiculous.
Just to give you an idea, and I know I've thrown shade at this player over many years and many podcasts, but James Conner, according to his ADP, is going ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. That's just wrong. I'm sorry, but that's just wrong.
How is that? What?
That doesn't make any sense. Going ahead of Ezekiel Elliott, which is wrong to me. I know he's younger, but Zeke's going to score.
Kenny Pickett.
I don't think he's ever not finished as an RB1.
Wow.
Like in his bad years, he finishes at like RB10, RB11. It's just ridiculous. I'm pretty sure I'm the one who put Zeke on the sheet there, and yeah, that just blew my mind. Like I know he's old. The DLF has the ages listed here. He's 26.8 years old, but until he doesn't score as an RB1, I believe he's going to score as an RB1, and they're going to give him the ball. I mean, they've shown that. I mean, everyone wants Pollard to get the ball. Pollard's not getting the ball.
I don't think so. Not all the time.
Yeah, not at the level people want him to. It's not going to be an even split. So, and Zeke's going to score the touchdowns, for the most part. So, I still think he's got at least one more year in him, and that should be worth more than. And I think he's got more than 1 year because I'm not even sure they can get out after 22 for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if they can
contract. Either. Yeah. So I think he's got 2 years with the Cowboys in a good offense on a team that loves to give him the ball, and he never gets hurt. He's missed I think one game in his entire career for injury. And Pollard went off on that game, which made everybody go nuts. But yeah, he never misses time. So it's just he's healthy and he produces. What more do you want?
Well, here's a classic question. This trade occurred a month ago, but Zeke or 23 first?
Well, that's a little too far.
First. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's a trade that occurred. So somebody is buying high on Zeke at that point. In my mind, I'd rather have the first, right? But then, I scrolled down to the very next trade, and a person who I trust in this industry, Scott Connor, who apparently is off on Zeke, traded Zeke Elliott for Dameon Pierce and George Pickens.
Yeah, I'm in that league. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Tecmo Bowl.
That's
so
Tecmo,
that's an interesting variation of trade right there. Like George Pickens and Dameon Pierce. I think either
that was like the 112 and the 203 basically.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great value for Zeke personally.
Well, I'm looking at that those are. I don't know if I would probably take the Zeke side in that, knowing who the names are. But at the picks make more sense.
I see. Yeah.
But that's kind of where I was saying, the names, like Dameon Pierce, I'm not sold on. Pickens, I'm not sold on. You know what I mean? But if you give the names to that, it lowers the value a little. The numbers make a ton more sense. But that's always the case for me.
By the way, I looked it up. Over the last 4 seasons, Zeke's lowest finish, at least in PPR, was RB9.
Yeah,
you mean for the season, not points per game. You're talking about season
for
finish,
the
right?
entire season, season finish RB9.
I'm sure he's been RB2-ish in a couple seasons.
In his entire career,
every game.
In his entire career, his lowest finish by yearly, not by PPG or anything like that, was RB12. That was his entire career. He's been in RB1.
But there's and there also is, even if he did not finish 1 year as an RB1 in points, I mean, there's a value to having him every single game and knowing you're getting points out of him.
True.
Okay.
We can probably move on from Zeke because I feel like we all pretty much just agree.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Okay. I feel like you probably put this on here, Bobby. Kadarius Toney.
Another. I did. I feel like
we're just NFC East tonight. I like this.
I know it's all NFC East.
So
of course he picked the Giant too.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney comes in at wide receiver 51, 137th overall. And my case for this is pretty simple. It's that when he was on the field, he looked electric and was putting up fantasy points by getting touches. He's now away from Jason Garrett and is in an offense that's coached by Brian Daboll, who comes over from the Buffalo Bills. And we all know that the Bills had a high-scoring offense. I'm hoping the Giants can do some of that, even though they are going to be in a rebuilding year. My one concern, I guess, is that he wasn't the guy who was drafted by this regime, and that was Wan'Dale, or as I like to say, Wan'Dale Robinson. But that said, even at wide receiver 57 prices for Tony, which I'm guessing is something like, a mid to late second round pick, I will take the chance that he essentially becomes the top target on the Giants every time at that, because next season, even if Daniel Jones doesn't work out, earlier we talked about Stroud, we talked about some of the other quarterbacks coming out in the 23 class. If he gets paired with them, I would be very, very happy with paying that price.
Yeah, he's kind of like a what the hell kind of what the hell do I do with this guy kind of guy for me. I'm not sure what to make of him, but I'm just looking at that area. I mean, there are definitely guys that like John Mechie is directly ahead of him. I'm taking Tony over Mechie all day.
That's yeah.
Christian Kirk is right there too. Like,
Tony's a guy I had 0 shares of, 0. But I just finished a startup that's like a half-ish home league, but there's some other experienced people in there, whatever. And after I took Tony, like a couple of people freaked out because they know me and they know I hate Tony, right? And they're like, why would you take him? I thought you hate him, blah, 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 And I was like, I do, but he should not be available at that point. Like, Matt Corral, Rondale Moore, John Mechie, Alec Pierce, Tyler Lockett, Devin Singletary. Like, do you want any of those guys over Kadarius Toney? Like, I could make some of the arguments, Alec Pierce or something, I guess, if you like him, sure, okay. But I'll take him over all of those guys. Like, the fact that I got him in, like, as like my wide receiver 7 or something. I mean, sure, I'll take the upside on him. Like, either he comes through and he does something, or maybe he gets traded. And if a team trades for him, obviously they want him, right? So, yeah, I'll take the shot at that point. I'm definitely willing to gamble on the upside over just taking, Adam Thielen, who's going to have a year left, if that, maybe a couple. With any
I'm not
production.
confident in his production, and his value is gone. He has 0. Like,
Exactly.
Nobody will give anything for Adam Thielen.
No chance.
Well, and just pulling it up again, because I'm curious what the real market says on these. This is where I love doing this. There's 3 trades that pop up that just blow my mind because of how variety they are. Kadarius Toney for Terrace Marshall.
Oh God, that's
Tony.
Tony by a mile.
Wow.
I'm not even
Right?
a big Tony guy.
I'm buying Marshall too, by the way, for his cost. But yes, I would take Tony.
But wow, Kadarius Toney or Elijah Mitchell for Sam Fran.
Elijah Mitchell, probably.
I still take Mitchell, but
for me.
It's a closer trade.
Close. Yeah.
And then I don't know why, but this one made me chuckle. Tony for the 312. That's rookie fever if I've ever heard of it. That's in
like
the
12 in a
Bowl
week
Dynasty.
class.
That's in the Tecmo Bowl Dynasty. Like, that must have been on the clock. I don't know. No, that's
Really?
a different trade. Sorry, that's
No. I was going to say, wait
but
a
still,
minute.
like, that's
As I said, I don't
nuts to
remember
me.
that one.
That's a nuts one. That's not that one, but it's still
So
a
that's
nuts one.
basically,
you know what? Let me
Hassan
say something
Haskins
really quick.
or
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah.
Like, well, first of all, that's Hassan Haskins, but that's a whole nother. Listen, that's like that's like when you buy a stock at $100, okay, and it goes down to 70, and it's a long running company, it's a strong company, they're still doing well, there's just some outside factors, and you sell at 70. Like, it makes no sense. Like, don't guarantee your loss. You probably took him like in the mid-second, and now you just sold for a 312. Like, even if you took him at 212, you just lost a whole round of value for no reason. Like, that's, I mean, listen, for someone who doesn't like the guy, I mean, that's giving up. I mean, I think I told the story last week about just straight up dropping Ronald Jones. Like, I was just out on him, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was done. But I mean, Tony, why would you do that? It makes no sense.
Okay, so we'll go 1 or 2 more guys here, and then we'll move on to find me a trade. But Dustin, I haven't heard from you in a while, so you pick the next guy. I want you to pick the next guy.
Yeah, the guy I actually put on there, I think is undervalued is Hunter Renfrow. He's kind of in that same range as Tony. He's going as wide receiver 47 and 120 overall. So, I think he's one of those guys that's going to be like, like an Edelman type that like it took a while for Edelman to really have the value, but he just kept putting up points. Like I feel like that. I feel that same thing with Renfroe. Like he's just not getting that respect. Like he just keeps putting up points, and like now he's going to have less to worry about on his team, target defense wise, because they got Adams over there. Like, I really like just kind of what's going on over there in Vegas. But where you guys at on Renfroe? Like, am I crazy? I mean, he's a wide receiver 5 right now.
You're crazy, but you're not that crazy. Like, let's be honest. Like, Renfroe's a good value. I think this is a good pick. I like this one being on here. I also think that Renfroe is one of those guys that I've been all over the place with myself, right? Like, as soon as Adams signed, I was out on Renfroe, but the more I've thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I think he's still got a place in this offense. I think Waller's the one that takes a step back, and like, I kind of waffle on this, and I think Vegas is going to have to do something this year that they get Adams, and they're going to have to make that offense work. And I think Renfroe might be the guy in the slot that is just going to collect passes underneath. So I kind of waffle on him this entire offseason. It's not a point scoring season, as Russ would say. And it's like, man, I love that value. I'm right there with you. Like, if you're taking him over guys like we were just talking about, right? Like Tony, I'd much rather have Renfroe than Tony. I don't think that that's a bold take. I'd rather have Renfroe than Tony. There's a whole bunch of those guys.
That question to everybody. Like,
I will say that I'm about to make Rocky hate this though, because so David Bell is going many.
I was going to bring that up. Yep. After
Renfroe, so Rocky's like, no, it's David Bell. Get Renfroe off my team immediately.
Probably.
Well, and he's just ahead of, like, again, if we're going and running our wide receivers, you got our wide receiver 47 is Renfroe, 48 is Lockett, 49 is Thielen, 50 is Mechie, 51 is Tony, 52 is Kirk, 53 is Bell. Of that group, Renfroe definitely belongs at the top, but you can see the range in there. Like, that's a lot of, like, Lockett and Thielen are the aging kind of down declining assets. And then you've got Mechie and Bell, who are rookie fever hyped up kind of assets. And then you've got Tony and Kirk, who are kind of like wild cards, like Renfroe's a wild card in that regard, but just ahead of him.
Disagree, by the way. I would.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm not a David Bell guy, but I would argue just by the hype that he's getting in the community that he is the clear top of that list, because so many smart people are in on Bell that it doesn't even matter. Yeah, of course, like Rocky. It doesn't even matter if he does anything that relevant. If he has like a few blow-up games, he's going to have value, because there's the Twitter echo chamber of like David Bell, which will increase his value significantly from wide receiver 57 53, or whatever it is right now.
Well, I was just saying that's where I have Renfroe at the top of that list. I agree with you that there is probably some room to move. But again, looking at ADP is different than rankings anyway. And ADP as of May had Mechie ahead of Bell, which I think is going to correct itself in June. We might see Bell as a top 30 receiver if the hype is what you say, I guess. But where I'm even looking at this next, then, if you put Bell ahead of Renfroe, ahead of him on ADP, you've got Pickens, Hopkins, Jahan Dotson, Chase Claypool, Christian Watson, Brandon Ayuk. These are all guys with question marks, right? Like, they're all still in that range of that wide receiver 40-ish. I might take Renfroe over a lot of those guys right now. I feel like there is still some room to grow in that value.
Renfroe with Adams and healthy Waller, I think it's a question mark too, though.
Sure. Of course. No, of course. I'm not saying he's not a question mark, right? Everyone in this range is. I'm just saying none of those guys are smash guys that are way better than Renfroe at this point. Like, they're all right in that range. And I think Renfroe has just as much
except
of a chance
David Bell.
Okay, fair. David Bell is a god, and we're all just happy to see him on the field. I'm on the Bell train, Rocky. I'm on the Bell train. I'm not trying to say that Bell is bad. I'm just saying, like, this is an interesting batch of receivers is all I'm going for. And Bell is included in that. And I like Renfroe a lot. So that was a good pick for you, Dustin. I like
that. Okay, one more to finish up here. And I know you guys didn't put any on the sheet, but Scott, why don't you pick our last one here, and then we'll move on to Find Me a Trade. Which guy left that we have on the sheet do you want to talk about?
Okay, well, there's so many options here. I don't like any of these options, honestly. Can I defer to Andrew?
Sure.
Chicken out, Scott.
All right.
Well, I want to leave the NFC East if that's all right with you guys. I feel like we've talked a lot. I mean, Renfroe is obviously outside.
Talked a lot of NFC East, yes.
Making sure. Christian McCaffrey is a guy that I think there is a lot of dynasty managers out there wondering what the hell to do with CMC right now. And I like that he was listed on the overvalued at RB4, 19 overall, according to May Superflex ADP. RB4 for Christian McCaffrey is both crazy and crazy. It's crazy low. Why isn't he 1? And it's crazy high. Why isn't he 10? Because honestly, the last 2 years he got hurt. Again, that's not someone I'm taking for my RB1 slot myself, but I would love to have him as somewhere in that range of maybe like the 3rd round. If McCaffrey's there in the 3rd, I don't mind risking it there, right? But I'm not willing to put my chips on McCaffrey as RB4. And I guess, Dustin, since you're the original host in a sense, what are your thoughts on McCaffrey? Is he worth that RB4 ADP?
I don't like that you went to me first because I like to listen to other people say things.
I know. I wanted you to get I want unbiased Dustin on this. Yes.
I don't think I'm there on CMC, but he's probably going to prove me wrong. I think he's going to end up there, but I'm not a big running back guy as it is, as Rocky knows. Like I build around, I know he doesn't like quarterbacks. I build around my wide receivers and my quarterbacks. That's just what I do. Like running backs is I'm fine with. I have a couple teams where I have like Chubb, Fournette, and Connor, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm set at my running back. I don't need the top guy because there's just too much volatility up there. But I also just I'm looking like Javante's got questions. Swift, who knows? Breece Hall's got questions. Eckler, there's just those top guys are all at the top, but they're all kind of the same to me. So I would probably still take CMC over most of those guys because I don't like any of the other options there. And most of those guys have good options around him that CMC doesn't have. They have DJ Moore, but that's it. Now the quarterback question is a whole nother thing.
Yep.
But I think he's still going to get the work. I'm not really worried about the running backs there. They don't have they have one receiver there to worry about. So he's still gonna get his work. And those pass catching running backs are always going to have value that the ones that don't catch him many passes have. So he's probably right there with me at 4, but I don't like putting him there, but I don't see anybody else I'm moving there either.
I've said all off season, a healthy Christian McCaffrey, I don't think there's any way he's not an RB1, not the RB1, but an RB1. But in a bad offense with a bad quarterback, and people are just acting like he's going to be the guy he was. I guess it's 3 years ago by the time he plays this year. I guess the people love to point out every time he played, he produced like he always does. But I just think it's insane to think that they're necessarily going to just give him touches upon touches upon touches after missing so much time with injury over the last few years on a team it's not like they're playing for anything. Obviously they think they are early on, but it's going to become pretty clear pretty fast that they're not playing for anything, and he's making tons of money for a few years here. Why would they I have no idea why they would give him. I know there's not much else there, but why they would feel the need to give him 95% of the RB touches or whatever. And I know a Christian McCaffrey who's getting 70% of the RB touches is still going to do pretty well, but I don't think he's going to be that guy that's just winning you your league. Even if he plays all 17 games next year, I think he's going to be good, maybe very good, but he's not going to be quote unquote Christian McCaffrey. So RB4 is a little rich for me, given that and given his age, and then that's not factored into. I mean, guys do decline with age. I know the last 2 years when he's played, he's really produced well, but that's not going to continue forever. I mean, it could continue in his 26 year, but it's not going to continue that much longer. And then if he gets hurt this year, his value is dust.
So
hey guys, sorry, not trying to interrupt. I got something important. Okay, I was trying to trade for Kadarius Toney, and I just got a counter offer.
Oh,
and
great alert!
So I'm gonna let y'all decide.
Dustin, really quick before you do this,
yeah,
I have to do this because all of the points that Rocky just made. Were you talking about Christian McCaffrey or were you talking about Saquon Barkley? Why do not all of those same things apply to Saquon Barkley?
They do.
Yeah, I said RB6 is too high for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, but you've hyped him up before and been like still way too high on him. So I just had to point it out that your
Well, to me,
argument is
the
very
difference
biased
is-
towards which player you.
Well, no.
like.
To me, the difference is a lot of people are well lower than I am on Saquon Barkley, and virtually everyone in the community treats McCaffrey as if, as long as he's healthy, he's giving you 30 points a game, and I just don't see that being the case. No one's acting like that with Saquon Barkley.
Besides you and Russ.
Well,
Okay.
Before we dive into the trade, I want to wrap this up and just say CMC and Barkley are both guys that I think have value if they're healthy, but that is a capital if, right? Like that's the whole point. They're too risky for that value. So that's exactly where I'm with you on this. Like their name value. That's all it is. That's all it is. But yes, let's talk about this trade, Dustin. What was the counter?
So I sent Tony for, I don't even remember, or for Brian Edwards in 2/3, just like trying to go real terrible. Scott's in this league. It's my video games league.
Oh, okay.
And he countered Christian Kirk, Damian Williams in 2/3 for Kadarius Toney and Chase Edmonds. So I give up Kirk. I would give up Christian Kirk, Damian Williams, and 2/3 for Toney and Chase Edmonds.
It's Tony's side for me, I think.
I think so.
I mean, the thirds. I mean, you can pick up thirds like in 5 minutes the way you trade in that league. So I think those are replaceable.
Damian Williams, the Met is already in his name, so like no one cares.
Great.
Classic. But I think Chase is going to actually have a pretty good year. I mean, if you're at that value, at that range, I mean,
he's at least going to be involved. Yeah.
I don't mind that at all. I think that's a Tony Chase side. I accept that counter.
Yeah, I like Kirk. Okay, I think I like Kirk more than most, but I still think that's the Tony side.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just told him to send it, so we're doing it.
There you go.
I mean, I'm already stacked in that league anyway, so it doesn't matter. I just wanted to do it. No, that
those
team.
are the best trades, you know.
That team's. Yeah. I just wanted to do it while we're on here. Like
I love it.
Live
that's
trade.
what I could do.
Episode 100. That's how we roll.
Yeah, episode 100 live trade. Okay, so I guess we'll get into Find Me a Trade now then, which this week was submitted by Ryan at Bruins Forever 37. It is a sleeper league. Andrew, are you gonna be able to bring up the roster? Yep. Okay,
I got it up. I'll start pulling it.
I'll do the settings, and then you can I'll let you go in the roster since you have it on your screen. 12-team PPR, super flex, 1.5 tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdowns, -1 for interceptions. 25-man rosters with a 5-man taxi, start 10, QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, super flex, and 2 flex. So a fairly kind of standard dynasty league. He says, it feels like I'm stuck in the middle, which is the worst place to be. Don't think I have the firepower / depth to be a serious contender, but I feel like I have a young core, mainly my wide receivers and Kyler Murray, which we'll see in a minute, his roster. Wouldn't mind loading up for 2023 by trading away older pieces like Eckler or some players with concerning situations. And I'll just he lists some players, but I'll let Ranger get into the roster and people can see that. Yeah. You there, Andrew?
Hey, my mute button was broken. That's great. I think I got it back. Hey, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Weird. That was okay. Anyway, so yeah, it is a super flex league. So quarterbacks matter. We got to focus on that a little bit here. But Kyler Murray and Ryan Tannehill starting quarterbacks. We got Eckler and Mitchell as the starting running backs. We got AJ Brown, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Russell Gage as your starting receivers in the flex there. And then Kittle as the tight end. We go down and look at the bench. This is really it, and he's exactly right. This is a middle of the road team. He's got 2 QBs. I think he had one, Matt Corral on his taxi from just being drafted. So he's really just got 2 QBs and a backup. That makes me nervous. Even in a middling team, I'd rather have 3 running backs after the top 2. He's got, I guess that's Jamal Williams, right?
Yes.
Gus Edwards, Hilliard, Harris, who's still worth something, I guess. Snell, James Robinson. There's some guys there. Tony Jones, Khalil Herbert, Rashad White. Isaiah Spiller. Like there's some names there that make some sense for running back, but that's a lot of flyers. There's a lot of upside potential. Receivers after the starters, it's pretty shallow. Zay Jones, Devin Duvernay, Nick Westbrook, Akine. And then there's some other guys on taxi that, again, Pacheco may not be worth anything. You got Jameson Williams, so I think you're going to probably call up from taxi right away on this kind of thing. Khalil Shakir might hang out there for a while. He's got Bellinger as a backup tight end, OJ Howard and Noah Gray. So I agree. It's an interesting build in a super flex league. I definitely don't like having two QBs. Yeah, there's a bye week and all that, but if anything gets injured, you're really, really hurting there. So that's the team. I mean, I guess Dustin or Rocky, one of the two of you, since you started this whole thing, do one of you want to start the Find Me a Trade too?
Yes, me, Dustin, and Andrew, I'm sorry, are the ones who did the Find Me a Trade. So we'll get into ours, and Bobby and Scott, I guess, can kind of rip them to shreds.
I'm ready.
They didn't do one. But I'll start with mine. The one I came up with was, I agree with Ryan's assessment of his team, like kind of like you said, Andrew. It's definitely a middling team. I think if everything goes perfectly for him, he could maybe do well. I still don't know that he wins a title, but he would probably need perfect injury luck and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not that concerned about 2022. So what I did was I looked to add a potential difference maker going forward without much concern for this year. So I traded Eckler and Juju to team. I don't even know how to say this. Like, it's just a bunch of letters. Artem Lapin. I'm just going to call it Team A for the rest of this. Team A for CeeDee Lamb. Eckler, I think, still carries quite a bit of value to a lot of people. So it could make some sense. This guy's not averse to rostering older running backs. He's got Aaron Jones. He's got Derrick Henry and not a lot behind him. So he appears to be trying to contend. Eckler makes some sense. He gets a receiver replacement in a start 3 league by getting Juju. And I just love getting Lamb. I've warmed up more to Lamb as the offseason's going on. He's pretty much in like the perfect situation to succeed at this point. He's got a good quarterback. He's in a good offense. He's the clearly best talent, but has just enough talent around him that to not totally take all the attention on him. You know, people have to worry about Schultz a little. If he's healthy, Gallup, you have to worry about a little. You got the running game you got to worry about there. So I think we're going to see that jump from CD that we've all been looking for, and he's going to give you a lot of production and a lot of value. I think his value is already very high, but if he has the kind of season we're expecting, he could have like Jefferson Chase value if he plays well enough. So I love getting Lamb. The only concern I kind of have here with the trade I came up with is if it's enough. I put it into 2 calculators. One had it slightly the Lamb side, one had it slightly the other side. So maybe it can get done. I'd be willing to even add to this. Yeah, he has Russell Gage. I would throw him in there if that maybe helps. Gives the guy a little receiver depth on a contending team. He has 2 seconds. So he's always 23 picks and an extra second. I'd throw that extra second in there if that gets it done. But what do you think, Bobby? What do you think here?
I think if I had CeeDee Lamb, this is not nearly enough to get me to give him up, even if I am contending. So I like it in theory. I just think in actuality, if I were team Artem, is it Lapin? I have no idea.
Team
how to
A.
pronounce that.
Team A.
If I were team A, I would not do this trade. I would, even if I were considering giving up Lamb, I'd probably go to someone else and try to find pieces that I like a little bit more to get back for him. I just think it's a little light for my taste.
That was my concern too. You agree, Scott? A little too light.
Yeah. So I mean, I think first of all, like everything would have to go right for this team to compete. So yes, the assessment is correct. I mean, I don't think it's really fair to ask me about CeeDee Lamb because I don't think I'd trade him for anything, really. So, I mean, there's pretty much nothing I'd trade him for. But, like, this is the type of trade that he should be looking to do. You know, let's try to get the players that can take that next jump. Like he was saying, let's move on from some of those older players. Like Eckler, everything went right for Eckler last year. He stayed healthy. He got goal line carries. He got high touchdown variance. It's not going to happen again. And even if it does, he'll be another year older. And so then we're talking about old running backs. So
That is how age works. Yeah.
You have to get rid of Eckler, in my opinion, if you want to.
Agreed.
Because almost you could sneak into the playoffs if things are right and you don't make enough deals. There's enough pieces here that could get you in, and then you're getting a higher pick than you want to have. So, in theory, this is the trade that you need to try to make, and you can always throw it out there. The worst that happens is he says no. That's how it works.
And if not, shop Eckler elsewhere. We have another Eckler trade coming up. But first, Dustin, why don't you do yours?
So I kind of agree with him that selling a Kittle type player is what he needs to do. I don't know that how Kittle is going to be with Lance. So I would be trying to move Kittle now before that they start playing together. And I actually like his starting lineup pretty good with Kyler, Tannehill. That's a serviceable QB room. Eckler, Mitchell, and then the couple of guys. We talked earlier about James Robinson. He has him there. If he comes back, and then Harris is a decent running back 4. So I wanted to just get him more depth. I think what he really needs, he needs a quarterback 3, but he needs more depth. And so, I used the name of Kittle to trade Kittle to get Hawkinson, who I know Rocky loves, and I'm right there. I love Hawkinson too, but Hawkinson and then either Judy or Elijah Moore, 2 guys that I've had that I really like, that I've liked going into last year. And Judy, he's had some questions. He's injured right now, so right now is the time to get him thrown into a trade. Or Elijah Moore, they just went and got Garrett Wilson, so people are not really knowing how that duo is going to play out. But downgrading Kittle to Hawkinson probably won't be much of a downgrade, but getting a Judy or Elijah Moore that you can plug in there, I like getting that. So that's where I'm at. Kittle was the one guy that I was he definitely needs to move on from. But his main lineup is pretty good. But your guys are right. He needs more depth. So this gives him more depth and 2 high upside guys that are still young that can still develop. So he's not getting old in the deal. He's getting younger and more depth.
Yeah, and I do like that it's 2 young pieces. I'm not sure how well he competes this year, but you're right. If he has more depth, maybe, like you said, the starting lineup is not that bad. I'm kind of where Bobby was on my trade. I'm not sure that you can get it done with those pieces. I'm not as high on Judy, so maybe if he's not as well, maybe that works. I just think and maybe I'm overvaluing Hawkinson in this, so maybe you guys can correct me. I just think Hawkinson and one of those receivers might be a little too much for the other guy to accept. But other than that, I like the trade.
Well, I'll jump in real quick and say I agree with you. I think that the Hawkinson and Judy or Moore side definitely has some value. I think it's going to take something on top of Kittle to make that move, but you've got that extra second. I don't mind throwing that in there if that gets it done. You know what I mean? That's totally worth it to me. But the other thing I wanted to mention here was that this is with Gagne. I don't know how we were pronouncing these things.
I know. What's with the names in this league?
I love it. But this guy's got 9 tight ends. He's got 9 tight ends. He's got Hawkinson, Allie Cox, Jonnu Smith, Hayden Hurst, Noah Fant, Donald Parham, Kylan Granson, Jake Ferguson, Kohler. He's got 9 tight ends.
Oh, he has Hawkinson and then nothing.
Well, and then a bunch of flyers. But again, I don't hate that logic, right? But 9 tight ends, and then he's also rostering Cam Newton. So it's it
also makes it more likely that he would trade for Kittle, in my opinion, because he has those 9 tight ends, realizing that he doesn't have that Kittle type.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's got 9 tight ends, so he's clearly looking for some help at tight end. He's looking at tight end as the place to strike, and he might be well, Kittle's an upgrade. It's worth doing. Also, he's got Burrow and Chase as a good stack there. He's got a really good team, honestly. This guy's one of the best in the league. He's got Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, Snoop Connor. I'm bringing up because I think he's hilarious. Ramondre Stevenson. He's got Judy and Moore, like we mentioned, Rashad Bateman, Mike Evans. I love that name. But also, I think he has potential to start because you never know at Jacksonville. But I'm just saying, he's got a really good team. So this could be one of those, as a contender, getting Kittle makes sense. But I don't think I would be willing to overpay as the Hawkinson manager. I don't think that makes sense. But I love the thought of the trade, for sure.
I think that you mentioned the second. I think when you said that, it makes it a lot closer. I think that makes it fairly close when you turn.
Yeah, he has 2 seconds. So, He can part.
That's
with
exactly
one
what
of
I
the
mean.
segments.
Yep.
The other
Or
You don't
maybe he
offer
gives
that.
he gives like one of his like, Jamal Williams, like just as like an extra piece. He's not
Well,
worth
he's
a
got
second,
he's
but
got
like
Swift, but I mean, like that's not a bad idea, right? Like a handcuff guy. There's some of that. I mean, there's some of that value in there, sure.
Alternatively, though, he may have the 9 tight ends, and I have something like this in one league because he feels okay essentially not having Kittle, and it's like I'll just figure out who has the best matchup and play it. So he might not feel the need to trade that. I will say I'm not as high on Hawkinson as I think the rest of you are, so I think this trade is something that could potentially happen, especially in a tight end premium league. But if you had to kick in like a second or something to get it done, I honestly don't mind that because I do think there is a lot of upside on like Rocky in either Judy or I think your other piece was more, right, Dustin? Yeah. I'm just trying to recall. And so, the Jets have a lot more to work with on offense this year, so that could help more. Judy now has Russell Wilson, and if he explodes with Russell Wilson, his value could explode. I know Rocky doesn't necessarily agree because he's a Cortland Sutton guy and also because he has to hate Judy because of our bet.
Yeah, but Juju for him.
Yeah, so that said, being not as high on Hawkinson and being higher on some of the other pieces, I do think it's a trade that could happen. And I do think Andrew talks about this all the time, where he says some of his trades that he throws out there are essentially just a starting point. So if this ends up being a starting point and you need to add in a little kicker to get it done, I'd be more than okay with that because I don't necessarily see it the same way that everyone else does of like you're giving up too much. I think throwing in a pick to get it done is totally fine with me as long as it's not like a first.
Yeah, I really wanted to like sell Kittle because I think this might be his last sell window. And I was looking through the teams, and there wasn't many teams that really needed a tight end. There's another team that I started with, but this team is really rebuilding. It's not a good team, and I was like, "There's no way he's buying Kittle in this league." The only team, and then I was like, "Okay, this guy has 9 tight ends. None are really that great, so like he's searching for that tight end, like Bobby said. So that's why I went to that team because like I do think he needs to sell Kittle. But there's not a lot of teams that are lining up for him to be able to do that. So that's why I started here. Like I'm fine throwing in the second if needed because you have 2 of them to get the deal done. But yeah.
And just to finish up with this one, I think that's a really good point about Kittle. He's a guy I am definitely looking to sell before the season. Like you said, we don't know what Kittle looks like in a Lance offense. We don't know what a Lance offense looks like. I mean, we don't know what he's going to be as a passer. We don't know what the volume's going to. I mean, it could very much look like the low volume Eagles offense that we saw last year that has people worried about guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. And then we're also we're probably only maybe a year or 2 away from people starting to worry about Kittle's age. I think he's going to be 29. I don't know if he's during the season or after the season, but he's starting to get up there. And I know tight ends, it's not as big of a deal as receivers, but it's going to start being talked about within the next year or 2. And his value is probably going to start going down because of it. So especially if he doesn't produce with Lance the way he has in the past. So, but with that, Andrew, why don't you finish us up here?
Sure. Yeah. So I think we all agree that this team isn't a pure contender, like we've said already. Right? This team needs some work. There is a lot of ways to rebuild this roster, but I'm sticking with the Eckler train. I think that Eckler is the one guy on this roster that just is the one thing that doesn't make sense. So I was thinking send Eckler and Khalil Shakir to Quan Solo, who has Josh Allen. So maybe there's some stackable thought there. You never know. For J.K. Dobbins and Jared Goff. Now, if I'm getting a quarterback in a trade without sending one, I feel like I'm going to have to overpay. Right? Like I'm going to have to, there's a tax for that, right? I don't think this is a trade that will get through as it is, but I think sending Eckler is clearly better than Dobbins in my book. Goff, a lot of people are just out on Goff and don't want to do it anymore. They don't think he's the guy. So it depends on if this guy is that guy in this league, right? He's got Josh Allen, Desmond Ridder, Carson Wentz, Kellen Mond, and Jared Goff. So he could look at that and say, well, Goff's riding my bench. I don't really need him. Dobbins, I would rather get a better running back in there. The way this team is lining up, he's got a ton of running backs, and he's got 5 tight ends, but none of them are studs. So it might make more sense to try to move Kittle to this team and kind of for the same thing. Maybe you could do Kittle for Dobbins and Goff or something like that to kind of pivot. But I just thought Eckler and Shakir for Dobbins and Goff is a good starting point to see if there's any interest. And if not, you've got some options because this other team could use a lot of help. But I guess, Scott, we'll start with you on mine. What was your thought on that one?
Yeah, I like moving Eckler, as we talked about earlier, and just I'm not like a huge fan of Dobbins, but I think when you get younger at that position, that gives you more opportunity then later to make other moves, and so having that flexibility is good. Because again, he's pretty much at his peak, and I'm a huge fan of selling players at their peak. And Dobbins has the opportunity to increase in value. So not only are you moving on from somebody, who's likely not going to continue at that value, but then you're also getting somebody who could gain. And then even like Shakir is a nice player. I like him fine, but what is his ultimate upside? Like he's not really ever going to be a wide receiver one. So if you can get yourself a starting quarterback that gives you options this year, because what if and I've had rosters like this where I didn't think I had any depth, and then I had 3 guys that had career years, and it ran me to a championship run, right? Where it just went bonkers. So you don't know what's going to happen, but this at least gives you the flexibility of, okay, now I have a quarterback that I can move instead of like a, at best, wide receiver 3. And that guy's going to be valuable to somebody at some point. The first guy you probably try to trade for is like Matt Ryan. Like, oh, I'll take Matt Ryan for this year as my QB3 and try to win. But Matt Ryan is going to age out at some point. Goff, even though he doesn't start beyond this year, he should be a high-end backup somewhere too, maybe even a bridge over the next several years. So I don't mind picking him up cheap. And to me, a quarterback always going to have more value than a wide receiver 3 at best. So yeah, overall, I like the trade. I think it gives them some roster flexibility. And at the end of the day, I don't think anything needs to be added to this. I think you could offer it straight up, and it's, for me, like I said, I'm not a Dobbins fan, so I think this could get done.
I think it hinges on your valuation of those players, as always, right? Like if you're higher on Eckler than most, or you're lower on Goff than most, this trade makes total sense either way. But Bobby, what do you think? Is this a bad one? I'm really dying to know what Bobby thinks of this trade. Is this a terrible offer?
Because Bobby does love to rip Andrew's trades.
It's not a terrible offer.
Yes, I'll take it. Stop talking. We're good. No, I'm just kidding.
What I would like to know, I guess, is to your point about how people are valuing these running backs, because I think there are some people in the community that value Dobbins even more highly than Eckler at this point, simply based on like age and the fact that Dobbins could increase in value. And so then you're giving up Shakir, who to me, and I mean no offense to this, we've talked jokingly about this on this podcast before, but if Shakir's family is listening to this podcast, I apologize in advance for what I am about to say, but he means nothing to me. He has like close to 0 value in Dynasty. And so giving up him and Eckler for Dobbins and a quarterback, even if it's Jared Goff in a Superflex league, I just don't necessarily see it going down, because Goff does have some value. He's going to start at least some games this year, if not the entire season. So I think you would have to assume that this person values Eckler way more than Dobbins. And just given what I've seen, I really don't think that's the case anymore. But it's not, as Rocky talked about earlier, how I've ripped some of your trades, and it's not because I like ripping your trades. It's just generally I have not been a fan of the trades you've submitted, but we're just
different people, Bobby. It's okay. It's okay.
It's just that you come up with bad trades, Andrew. That's always.
It's not that I don't like your trades. It's just you have terrible trades. It's totally fine.
I was going to give you a compliment and say This is not close to the worst one I've seen.
No, this is not close to the worst. I know I've sent you some via DM that I'm like, I did this trade, and you're like, why? I'm like, just to piss you off, Bobby. It was so fun.
Yeah, no, it's true. Andrew sends me trades that he essentially knows are some of the worst trades that he could be offering, but he just likes to see me squirm and torture me with them.
Yeah, well, Ron, I enjoy it, so
yeah, I don't mind it. It's totally fine. Totally fine. Anyway, sorry. If you have more, go ahead, Bobby. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was it. I was just giving you a compliment on this. Was not even close to one of the worst.
I will gladly take that compliment from you. But Rocky, what is your opinion of this one? I know you seem like you had an opinion there.
I think they pretty much summed it up. I think this is definitely one they can get done. And the only thing I was going to add is that I think even the people who roster Goff don't like Goff. So I think that's a really easy add there.
He's got Ritter, so like he could be looking at it like He could be looking at like Goff as his 4th QB if he thinks Ritter's going to start. Like, I know
I think he's fine as a QB3 for our team that we're trying to make the trade for. So yeah.
Well, and there are plenty of people that think Dobbins is coming back from an injury. He's going to lose a step. Like, it really just, all of this hinges on all of these guys being kind of all over the place for what we said before. But I think we all agree Eckler at his current value, I don't see it going up. And that's the main thing I'm trying to trade is anyone that is on the decline before they decline more. So this is actually one of those trades too. I might wait till after week 1 and kind of just hold on and see how it goes. Because if Goff has a bad week 1 and Dobbins comes out of the gate rusty because he hasn't played in a while and Eckler gets 3 touchdowns, this trade makes way more sense. You know what I mean? Like we have a whole nother data point then that you can lean on. So again, I don't know if I make this trade today. I always say timing is everything. This is not a trade I'm like forcing through, but I don't mind sending it to see the reaction. And if the guy's like, no way in hell, I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I move on. And I say, well, what about Kittle? And we talk about a different trade, you know? Like, I think Bobby probably knows this best, but like, I don't tend to get too butthurt when you don't like my trades. I'm like, that's fine. If we all liked each other's trades, there would be no trading, right? Trading is all about value differences. So when you tell me I value players differently, I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's actually ideal. Thank you for telling me that. Who do you value more than I do then? Let's find something that you want. Like, I think sometimes people get really upset with like, that was a bad trade. I'm like, it's just one that we didn't agree with because neither one of us accepted. What I don't like is when people bash trades that both sides accepted, because then it's like, wait, that trade went through. Like we were talking about trades before, like that trade went through. Like I wouldn't do that, but it's not a bad trade. Both sides agreed. You know, both sides said, yes, that's all that matters. So that's the only time I really get kind of up in arms about this, but I do love pissing you off, Bobby. It's so much fun.
It wouldn't be an episode of this show, at least over the past couple of weeks, if we didn't have Andrew's trading philosophy on it and essentially him defending his trading philosophy.
I feel like I have to keep defending it in different directions, though. So we'll see what happens next week. Stay tuned.
Maybe especially ever since that Bosch episode.
Oh, that was such a good episode. Ultimately, we agreed, but it didn't sound like it. But yes, go ahead.
Okay, so that's going to finish this up here. So, Dustin, I guess I just want to let you kind of sign off here. I know you're not doing any podcasting right now, even though you probably should be. So anything you want to say, give people your Twitter handle, anything else you want to put out there before we finish up the show?
No, I just want to congratulate you guys again on 100 episodes. You know, I knew you were going to get there, even though you said earlier multiple times like you didn't think you were going to get there. I'm just honored and excited that you brought me back on for 100. You know, it's just, you know, I love talking with all you guys and you guys have been doing amazing things. So, like Rocky said, I'm not out there, really much anymore. I've just been pretty busy recently. But I'm still out there a little bit, at Dynasty Junkie FF on Twitter, but really, just share the podcast. I know these guys have a big following now, but you know, get it out there. They have some amazing people on their show, and just go listen. Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a blast, and I won't be such a stranger in the future.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. I'm so glad you could make it this week. And I told you prior to coming on here, and anytime you want to come back, we'll have you as a guest. Loved having you on tonight. And just to tie a little bow on the whole episode 100 thing, I just wanted to. It's funny. We were supposed to have another guest on tonight, and it didn't work out. But it's almost fitting. We have all 5 hosts of this show on the show. I kind of love that, and I've said this to you, especially maybe not to Dustin recently, but I know recently I've said it to the other 3 of you in our Junkies chat. I appreciate you guys so much, and including you, Dustin. You guys have been so great. I've just been amazed. I've been so lucky that like doing this show when Dustin had to leave. And I just kept finding these super smart people that somehow weren't already doing podcasts and agreed to come on this show. I don't know how it happened. I guess maybe it means I was doing something right, that you guys were all coming on here. Like I said, I feel blessed. I appreciate you guys. And I'm very happy to have all 3 of you currently on. And Dustin, you know, I love doing it with you for the first 35 episodes or whatever it was. So with that, I do have one other thing I want to say before we give all our sign-off stuff. We are going to be doing the Junkies Listener League 2. Speaking of the history of the show, me and Dustin were presumptuous enough to think about 15 episodes in, we should have a listener league, which has been going for 2 years though. It has lasted. We managed to form it. But we are doing listener league too. So it's going to be a 14-team league, we're pretty sure. Beyond that, we haven't worked out all the scoring and settings. I believe, what are we going to do? I think it's Bobby and Andrew are going to co-manage a team, and me and Scott.
Yeah, I'm being forced to co-own a team with Andrew because everyone
Pure
thinks it's so
entertainment.
funny.
Teach me, Bobby.
We want to get 12 other managers to come in, listeners. And so I don't even know if we're going to promote this on Twitter. I'm hoping we can just promote it during the show for the next few weeks and get 12 people to sign on. We want people who are actually listening, not just people who want to be in some league. So DM us. You can DM me. Really, you can DM any of the four of us. DM Dynasty Junkies at Dynasty Junkies. And we will, it's basically going to be first come, first serve. Like I said, we want the listeners. So whoever you DM, we'll put a list together, and we'll figure out the settings soon and let you guys know that as well in the coming weeks. So with that, I guess I just want to say again, thanks to everyone on the show tonight. Follow all these guys at Wrecked Fantasy, at Scott_Sidlow, at Andrew Hall FF, at Dynasty Junkie FF. Don't worry about me. Follow the pod at Dynasty Junkies. Follow the DAP Network at DAP_network. Subscribe to the pod. Review the pod. We love seeing that. Haven't gotten enough. We need more. And I'm going to say that's it. So, Dustin, since you're here one last time, and we will not cut it off.
Junkies out.